Hello, everyone, and welcome to Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. I am Nipasa Pradhan, and I'm very happy to have all you folks join us wherever you have joined us from. Well, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and even on LinkedIn and YouTube. Thank you so much, all you folks out there. And absolutely, this is Immigration and Jobs Talk Show, where we discuss the latest trends and insights shaping the immigration landscape. I am your host, Nipasa Pradhan, and I'm going to be with you for the next hour. And today, we are also going to be joined by a very special guest with who we are going to discuss today's topic. And I will definitely tell you about the topic. But without further ado, please help me welcome back Attorney Prashanthi Reddy once again to our show. So good to have you, Prashanthi. Thank you so much for joining us once again today.
Thank you, Nipasa. It's good to be here.
So, how's it going there? And must be so busy. I mean, post lottery results as well.
Yes, there's obviously a lot of phone calls and emails. People having questions, wanting to file their H1s, wanting to see if they qualify or not for their H1 because they don't do that when they do the registration. They just do the registration, and after that, they're like, okay, well, we have a master's degree, but it's not in a related field. Do we still qualify for, the H1B master's cap? Like that, there's so many questions that people have to ask, and I'm always out there educating people, not just my clients but even people who send me emails who are not my clients. I usually respond to them as well, so it keeps me very busy.
Absolutely. Very nice. So, folks out there, by watching our videos, you agree and understand that the information provided by our experts and attorneys, including comments and replies from users, is not legal advice. So, use of information is at your own risk. And well, Prashanti, today, without further ado, we will go into the topic today, which is remote work and immigration, exploring the influence of remote work on immigration and visa policies. So, what can folks out there expect in today's episode from us?
So today we'll basically be discussing what is happening in real life, really in the real world, right? Since COVID, more so since COVID, everything has become remote. So USCIS itself, the immigration department, the labor department has many thousands of workers that are remote. So they're aware of this just as we are. And the IT industry, of course, has always lent itself to remote work, but since COVID, more so, I would say. And employers are trying to bring back, their employees from completely remote to at least coming in to the office a few times a week, because they've realized that, the best option is a blend between the two and not just having one or the other, right? So USCIS has had, has acknowledged remote work more and more, but ever since COVID, especially, it has completely acknowledged the fact that remote work is possible. So we'll talk about various situations where the remote work is happening and how USCIS deals with it. And some outcomes are quite ridiculous, but they're still there because I guess regulations haven't changed, but because for that to happen, it takes a while and there's a process involved. But practically speaking, the USCIS is allowing it, and we'll look at those various scenarios today.
Absolutely, friends. Today we are going to dive into this intriguing intersection, of remote work and of course immigration. And the world is absolutely have been has been adapting ever since COVID, especially as Prashanti mentioned, to remote work model. Then how does this influence immigration and the visa policies is what we are going to uncover today with none other than Prashanti. So moving on, I mean, with the latest update that was yesterday, could you provide insights into the latest update on the visa bulletin released yesterday and how it impacts the immigration processes, Prashanti?
Yes, so as we know, and for those who don't know, the visa bulletin comes out every month.
Mhm.
And just a little background on what the visa bulletin is.
Okay.
USCIS, the Department of State, actually has a defined number of green card visas, just as it has H1 visas, which is a defined number. The green card visas as well are a defined number. So they have a particular number of green cards that they release every month. And every year actually, and then they accordingly divide that number by countries. So every country gets the same amount, 7%, 7 odd % of the total number of green cards available. And therefore, for countries that are file a lot of green cards, for people from those countries that file a lot of green cards, the visa bulletin, you can't immediately file for the adjustment of status, which is the last step, the 485, which gives you the green card. You have to wait for your green card number to become available, because often the green card numbers are oversubscribed for almost all countries in most categories. And we know that there are employment based categories, we know that there are family based categories. In employment based categories, there are three: EB1, EB2, and EB3. In family based categories, you have several family based categories: US citizen spouses, US citizen green card holder spouses, etc., etc., siblings of US citizens. So every category has a number, and that number appears on the visa bulletin, and the green card numbers are allotted to all these categories. And when one category remains unused or is used less, that the numbers fall to the next category. So that's how it generally works. And if you look at the visa bulletin this month, you will see that India and China are backlogged for EB1, EB2, and EB3, which means that the priority dates are not current, which means that you can't file your green card immediately. You have to wait for your date to say C or current on the table. And you have two tables: one is the dates for filing table, and one is the final action date table. The dates for filing table is the table that is used um, when USCIS determines that you can file in advance of the dates becoming available. And by the time they process it, they are hoping that the dates will become available. So they're allowing advance filing. The final action date table is the table where the number is actually available, and you can immediately file and get a green card, depending on how quickly USCIS processes your case. Right? I know this is a lot to take in, and you
Yes.
can keep watching the video. We're recording it, so you can watch it over and over again. So this historically, the visa numbers have been backlogged for India and China for the all the employment-based categories, except for EB1, which used to be current a few years ago now, during COVID especially. But now it's not available, so you should go to the visa bulletin and look at all the dates that they're there. But a quick update for this month's visa bulletin: there is unfortunately not much change in the dates for EB1, EB2, EB3. There is no change at all for Indian nationals and other countries as well. So everything remains the same as it was the last month. It's the same dates. The only and also I must same as last month, the USCIS has said that they will look at the final action date table for employment based cases. Like I told you, there are two tables, and USCIS decides which table they want to look at. Usually the dates for filing table have better dates that move forward more quickly, and the final action date table, the dates are usually later on because that's the actual availability. So for this month, for employment based, they're going to look at the final action date table. And for family based cases, they're going to look at the dates for filing table, which shows you that there is some scope for forward movement in the family based cases, but they don't see much scope for forward movement in the employment based cases. Now, even though there hasn't been much change and this month, and there may not be much of a change the coming months as well, we expect that there will be forward movement around the end of the fiscal year. So the new fiscal year starts in October. So we will definitely see forward movement in of these priority dates in the month of October. In September, we might see some retrogression, or August or September. We might see the dates moving back unless something happens, and things always happen with USCIS. Unless something happens, that's what we can expect moving forward for the visa bulletin, and that's how you look at the visa bulletin.
All right. Let's, I mean, hope for the best and see that maybe we'll have good changes in the future, coming future for sure. So, folks, I hope you are ready. And thank you wherever you have joined us from. I can see hello, hi on YouTube. Neela, big hello to you. Fawad, then Sohail, thank you so much. I can already see your questions. We are going to take them up. Please stay with us. Just a couple more first from my end so that we will have a more clear picture on what are we going to discuss about today. And that is the topic, remote work and immigration, of course. So, Prashanthi, how has the recent surge in remote work influenced immigration trends in the United States?
Um, so, as I said, immigration law is always catches up with the real world, and they're mostly far behind because they take so long to write new regulations and acknowledge that things are changing in the world. It's like a dinosaur, so it's like the IRS. It's not much different. Um, so they still haven't written out a set of regulations that govern remote work, so that leads to some funny situations when it comes to the outcome. They are allowing remote work, there's no doubt about that. So, for example, in the H1B situation, you are allowed to work from home, and as in your work location, you can put your home location as your work location in the LCA. That goes to the labor department, so that determines the salary that you're paying is determined by your work location, right?
Okay.
So you have to put that work location, whatever it might be. So if it's a home, previously we would be a little hesitant to put a home office or a home address as a
Right.
work location. So most employees, if they didn't have to go to the client side, would go to their employer's office to work. This is in situations where they're working for consulting companies. So we would often put the employer's address because that was a business address, even though they were, they were working, so they would have to come to the employer's office to work. Now, USCIS has acknowledged and is aware and has no issue when we put the home address as the address in the LCA. But there is something called a posting requirement where the LCA has to be posted, the document that I was talking about, the Labor Department document, which you have to file before filing the H1. You have to file it to the Labor Department. It's called an LCA, where the wages, etc., are mentioned in there, and it's pre-approved. You have to get it approved and then file the H1. So that document, while you can mention the work location as the home, there is a posting requirement. The LCA has to be posted at the work site. And so the work site being the home address, then the LCA ends up being posted on the person's refrigerator, perhaps, in their kitchen. And that's quite a ridiculous outcome. Who's going to look at that LCA posting in a person's on a person's refrigerator in their home, right? So it's a ridiculous outcome, and it seems almost redundant to do something like that because no one's going to see it. But that's still the rule, and we still have to follow it. The other issue is, FDNS site visits. When there is a organization called FDNS, which they are contractors for the USCIS, and you're paying the extra, your employer is paying a certain amount of money from the USCIS fee for the H1 to take into account the expense of these FDNS visits. So whenever you file a H1, or sometimes the FDNS can audit your H1, so they might come to your employer's home, they might come, to your employer's office, they might come to the end client, go to the end client's office, or contact them at least to see whether you have a job or not. And they could certainly come to your home as well, because that's the work location here. And so that's also, I don't think that was envisioned in the regs that somebody would visit, an employment-based petition. They would get a visit from an FDNS officer at home, but that's what the outcome is, and that's what the impact is of working remotely. You can now FDNS officers are visiting your home, and they're looking at your work site. What is the work site to look at? Your living room couch, or maybe you have a desk. So they're asking where you work. They want to make sure that you're working for that particular employer. So they want to make sure they see a workspace. So that's again a ridiculous outcome of wanting to see a workspace in the home. So my suggestion to those who are working from home is maintain a workspace at home. Have a room if you can, or at least a desk with a computer where you sit at, so that you can show them that here, this is the workspace. Or if you have an extra room, you can make that into a home office, even better. So that's those are some of the outcomes of remote work, which might seem a little weird, but that's because as I said, the regulations haven't caught up with what the actual ground situation is.
But it's true. I mean, it's happening. And so, I mean, that's why they want to make sure that folks out there who are working from home actually have a space. So the checking is only obvious, I think. Let's go ahead. I mean, let's take a question up from the audience. This one is from Fawad on YouTube asking, my H-1B visa stamping on my passport is till December 31st, 2020 from India and it's Dropbox. And after that, I have got a couple of approval, but never got a chance to travel out of USA. And there's a follow-up saying, my current H-1B is till November 2026. What is the maximum time I qualify for Dropbox if I go to India? Okay.
Can you just put the question back up? The first part. Let's answer part by part. My visa stamping on my passport is till 2020, so it's expired already. Um, and after that, I got a couple of approvals, but never got changed to travel out. They never traveled since 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And my current H1 is till 2026. Good for you. What's the maximum time I qualify for Dropbox if I go to India? Um, so you can get a visa. If I'm not quite sure what your question is, but if I think it is what it is, you're asking for how long will you get the visa? You will get the visa for the duration of your H1B. So if your H1B is until 2026, your visa will also be until November 2026. You qualify, or when do I qualify for Dropbox? Maybe that is the question. You should qualify for a Dropbox um, even now. As long as you've had a visa previously, anyone who's had a visa previously should qualify for the Dropbox. So you should qualify. But again, it's a case by case decision that they make. So sometimes even if you do a Dropbox, they can call you in for an appointment, for an interview. So it is
Mm-hmm.
really case by case. But you do qualify for a Dropbox right now because looks like you've had a visa previously.
Right. Thank you, Fawad. If you want more clarity, we are still here. Keep dropping your question in the comments, please. And we can also take one more. I think this one is from Hello Hi, asking, may I know what's the percentage range of selected H-1B lottery from your client companies? Okay.
What I could, at least from what I've noticed, and when I've spoken to other attorneys as well, we've gathered that the percentage range is about 20 to 30% was the selection range. Some, of course, had less, and some might be had 35%. But in general, the average is between 20 to 30%.
Okay. Thank you. Hello. Hi. Well, let's take another one, Prashanthi. This one is also on YouTube asking, Indian citizen here on an H-1B visa. My employer is open to remote work. Can I work remotely from India for my US employer without jeopardizing my visa status or triggering tax issues?
So you have to notify your employer, client, wherever it is you're working, that you're working from India. And if they're okay with you working from India, then there will be tax implications, and that you should speak to an accountant, or your employer will speak to an accountant as to what those tax implications are, how they're going to pay you, because they obviously can't pay you in the US if you're working in India. With reference to immigration consequences, there are none, because if you're not living in the US, you do not have to show any kind of immigration status, and you will not have any immigration status in the US. So there are no immigration consequences, but um, you will have tax implications, and you will not be on a H1. So even though you're on a H1 now, you will not be on a H1 if you're in working out of India.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Neela, and thank you, Prashanthi, for taking up that question. Also, I wanted to ask this one. There's a follow up. Let's see what follow up do we have from Fawad. I heard we qualify for Dropbox till 4 years from the old visa stamping date.
Right. So it's again based on a case by case decision. They could still allow you to do Dropbox even if you have um, gone beyond that period of time. So um, I wouldn't put it past them to, because they are so busy with in-person interviews right now, and they're so busy and backlogged. So they want to do as many cases as they can um, via the Dropbox, right? So I suggest that you still try for it, and if it's not happening, then they will anyway schedule you for a in-person visa appointment.
Right. All the best, Fawad. I hope you figure out for sure. Well, Prashanthi, also talking about remote work and visa categories, if you could highlight, what are the key visa categories that are most impacted, by the rise of remote work arrangements?
I think impacted in the sense that there's no negative impact except for some things that I mentioned, but all visa categories are really impacted. The H1 is, of course, the most impacted. The
Yes.
um, L1, I mean, all categories you can work remotely. There is no requirement that you should work out of the employer's office. So I think the benefit of remote work is available for really all visa categories, whether it be H, TN, L, um, you name it. Any work visa category that you can think of, E3, you can really work remote on any visa category.
Okay, great. And as
But I
for,
guess in addition to that, I would like to add, it's just that for the H1B visa category, since there's so many rules and regulations attached to that particular category, then that would be impacted most, I think, by remote work, because there are all these regulations and the salary requirements, etc., have to be followed more carefully for the H's. And that requirement is not there for the L's and the TNs. They don't. There's no salary minimum, maximum salary or prevailing wage requirement and posting requirement for L's and TNs. So I think the category maximum that is maximally impacted is really the H1s, because they just have, it's just more regulations surrounding the H1B visa applications.
right, right. And talking about it, how do immigration policies in the US differ for remote workers compared to, of course, traditional work-based employees?
So another area of impact, and I'm just thinking as we speak, is the um, green cards. There's the Labor Department as well.
Hmm.
So when you're doing a green card application, employment-based green card application for someone, if remote work is allowed by that employer, you do have to mention that in your advertisement,
Hmm.
and you have to say remote work is allowed, blah blah blah, teleworking is allowed.
Yeah.
If you do not mention that, and if the person works remote or is allowed to work remote, then the labor department, when they, if they find out, will then deny that labor certification, because they think this is an important, very very important part of the job description, and it has to be mentioned. Just as travel has to be mentioned, there's some things that they think are important enough that they have to be mentioned in the advertisement,
Hmm.
as well as in the job description. Usually when we place an advertisement, we mention only the key factors. We don't really mention the entire job description. If it's a one-page job description, we can condense it down to 2 lines. But there's some things that they want us to mention in the ad, and this is one of them: remote work and travel. So that has definitely impacted the way labor certs now have to be done, because we
Hmm.
definitely have to mention that, and if we don't, there are consequences. With reference to policies differing between remote workers compared to traditional office space, the policies don't differ. They're exactly the same. It's just that whatever had to be done at the work site now has to be done out of the remote workers' home if they're working
Hmm.
from home. So all those regulations, whatever they are, have to still be followed, but it's just that the workplaces now becomes the home. So if there are
Right.
posting requirements, then those postings have to be done at home instead of being done at, say the end client location
Mhm.
or the office location.
Okay, what if, the home is not in the state or the province or the country even, it's outside in another country, and the person may be working for a US companies in India or some other country.
So if the person is not in the US, then as I said, like with the previous example, the immigration laws, US immigration laws don't apply to them
Okay.
because they're not in the US. A
Hmm.
person is bound by US immigration laws only when they are physically present in the US. So they can do
Okay.
whatever they want, and they have to see what tax implications they are
Hmm.
with reference to this kind of remote work. Now,
Right.
something to remember is if you're working remote and if you change your home location, if you're moving
Hmm.
home, then you might have to file a H-1B amendment. So that's different from traditional office-based employees because USCIS requires you to file an amendment whenever the work location changes. If you're changing your home location, then your work location is changing because you're working out of home. For a traditional office-based employee, moving home doesn't impact them at all because they're still working out of their office location. So these are some things that to keep in mind. So you have to notify your employer when you move from one place to another. Because what happens is, and it's happened in the past many times, when FTNS visits and they find that you're not at that location where you are
Hmm.
supposed to be as per your LCA, and you've decided to move to Texas to your friend's house for a period of 6 months, and you didn't inform your employer, your USCI, your H-1B can get revoked because they see that you're not working there and you haven't filed an amendment either. And that's happened often many times. So just a note of caution out there: if you're working remote, please inform your employer if you're moving your work location outside of that county. If you're in the same county, you should still inform them, but it becomes even more important to inform them if you're moving your county, your residence out of that county, because you'll have to file most probably a new LCA and a amended H-1B petition.
Okay, interesting. Thank you, Prashanthi, for taking that. And since we are already talking about it, and we spoke a little bit about it, but if you can describe further, or explain further, how do remote work and immigration policies intersect, with issues such as taxation and even jurisdictional regulations?
So, as I was saying, remote work, immigration policies. I mean, I think, as I was saying, taxation, jurisdiction, there's no impact. Taxes is a completely different issue because it's not a USCIS issue. But the only thing USCIS requires is that you pay your taxes and you follow the rules, and your employer pays taxes on depending on where your work location is. So I had a case recently where USCIS sent an RFE. These people filed their H-1B on their own, the company, and USCIS sent an RFE because I think mainly because the person was the company was located in one state, and the person was previously located in one state but then moved to another state, um, and they didn't notice that he moved to another state. And even though the LCA was the correct um, work site, so as per the new place that he moved, his taxes continued to be from his old address. So he had moved to Alabama, but the employer, without realizing it, continued to pay payroll taxes out of North Carolina instead of paying the payroll taxes out of Alabama. And they did not correct this. And when they filed an amendment or an extension, it came to light that, as per LCA, he was supposed to be working out of Alabama, but the his payroll, pay stubs, payroll, and everything shows a North Carolina address. USCIS sent a denial, in fact, an RFE and then a denial stating that it did not follow the amendment rules. So even though they followed immigration rules, they didn't follow taxation rules, and so USCIS denied the case because they didn't believe that uh, they actually followed the rules because the taxes were still being paid out of the old worksite. And I guess the attorney that was responding to the RFE didn't do a good job in showing that. So these are the problems that you can get into with reference to tax if you don't, change the address in your taxes as well and file proper taxes for the proper state.
True. And I mean, a lie is a lie. And I think it's best to be transparent with your
Right,
attorney,
right,
with your employer.
right. I guess it wasn't a lie so much; they just didn't notice. But
Didn't clear it. Yeah, didn't put it on the
they
table.
did, they just made a mistake. But still, that's a huge mistake to make. So don't make those mistakes.
True. Thank you, Prashanthi, for taking that up. And well, friends, I can already see so many questions. I'll just say hi to everyone and we will take your questions. But for that, you just have to stay with us. Anjali, Shivangini, Mala, Virzhi, Mustafa, then we have Shahrukh, Tesa, Mangu, Ami, Amay. Yes, thank you so much, everyone. Just stay with us. We'll go for a short break. Prashanti, also, like friends out there, also, I really wanted to say a little something before we go off. And that is, that we have started something. And that is a hotline number, you can say. And for that, you have to dial the number that is shown on the screen. And you can also email Prashanti if you have questions directly to her, or email us at help@immigrationtalkshow.com. And if you go to this helpline number, 833-412-8472, and you will find, if you have any questions to Attorney Prashanthi directly, you have to dial number two. And of course, if you are looking for project placement, you have to press one. If you're looking to contact Attorney Prashanthi Reddy, press two, and so on and so forth. So if you go to this helpline or hotline number, you will have more idea about what we're talking about. So stay with us, and Prashanthi also stay with us. Okay, we're just going for a short break. Don't go anywhere.
Are you an IT consultant seeking a new opportunity? We offer job placement services for US citizens, green cards, EADs, and visa holders. We also sponsor various work visas like H1B, E3, TN, and green cards. 20 plus years of experience in the industry. Exceptional employee benefits. Highly rated by our employees. Global presence with 200 plus recruiters and direct clients. Connect with us. Call us in the number 408 335 6444 or mail us at nipa@higheritpeople.com or visit our website www.higheritpeople.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. I am Nipasa Pradhan, your host for today, and I hope that you enjoyed the short break and also have been enjoying this conversation we are having today with Attorney Prashanthi Reddy. Of course, exploring the influence of remote work on immigration and visa policies. And welcome back, also, Prashanthi. Thank you so much for doing this today with us.
Thanks, Nipasa.
All right. So, Prashanti, before the break, we were already discussing the impact of remote work on visa categories, immigration processes, and if you could also share some insights on how remote work arrangements are reshaping, the traditional immigration norms. You already spoke a little bit, but just a little, just maybe, if you can.
Um, yeah, as I said, they're reshaping because USCIS has become more aware, and they themselves are hiring people who are working remotely, so they're completely aware of the situation. And as I was giving a few examples, right, about how people don't realize that uh, working from home means that there's some additional things that they have to keep in mind, such as, if they're moving, they have to notify their employer, and and they have to file an amendment, in fact. So it's not that easy to move anymore, like it used to be when you were not working remote. um, Also, you have to remember that where your salary changes depending on where you're working. This is very important. So if you're every time Nipasa is asking me a question, I'm remembering something new. So, so your
That's
salary
good.
changes when you work remote. So for example, if you decide to move to New York City and work out of there, you will be paid a higher salary, because the prevailing wage